Well, here we go, gang. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. We got Dave Bacon. We got Tiffany Vague. We got Daniel Rubin. We're going to have a great show today. We're talking everything to do with wrapping rods and all kinds of other stuff, boater safety, and the debacle, which is the California Fishing Wildlife Commission, which you cannot. That's a population of fish in the ocean without that fish actually living here. But that's a subject for a different day. We'll talk about some fun stuff today. What do you think, Dave?
I think it's a good discussion.
Hello?
I'm here.
Can
I think it's a good discussion. We need to have it, but you're right. Probably not here. We need to talk about rod building.
Yep, let's talk about it. Good morning, Tiffany.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tiffany. Okay, go ahead, guys. I'm having a problem connecting, but I'll be on.
Okay.
Got it, Dave. So,
Got it.
Tiffany, I can hear you
Hello?
perfectly. And David, Mr. Bacon, Mr. Captain
Got it.
Bacon, I can hear you perfectly also. Dave might be having an issue receiving, but we're good.
Oh yeah. Well,
Can you hear me?
Going, and he'll yes, we'll keep going, and Dave will get it all fixed as soon as he can. We've been through this with him before.
He's outside in the beautiful sunshine.
I talked for an hour one time while he was fishing.
Yep.
Okay, we can hear you now, Dave. We got palm trees in the background, Captain, and everything.
Good. Well, let's go. Let's talk about fishing. Let's go, gang. Talk.
Okay. Well, Daniel, why don't you start off, and then I'm going to add some stuff to it, and then Tiffany's going to get plenty technical for us.
Technical stuff for it. So, ReelQuick Fishing, you guys have seen the glue-on versions of our reel seats so far.
Yes.
We have these in stock in black. We have a few colors in stock. 3 colors: red, green, blue, and gray or clear. 2 sizes. Here's the 27 millimeter size. So what I do want to talk to you guys about is the newest thing that we're developing, which you guys have seen this, but I'm going to go over it again. Is the ReelQuick sleeve that goes over the Winthrop bending butt. All right. So we developed this. We've made a few of them in metal, and now we're going into production with these things. So this is an interesting piece that we discovered. So let me take the tip off the rod. And basically we strip all the ferrule nuts off of the Winthrop bending butt, and we could slip our piece right over the top of their sleeve and then secure it with the ferrule nuts. The thing that's cool about this, you guys have been a little worried about the reel sliding off towards the tip, just for obvious reasons. Looks a little precarious, but we trust the pin. But you know what we said for this bigger gear, when we're going to be putting a 50 on this and deep dropping for swordfish with this gear, why don't we put it the other way? And which is no problem. The only difference is on that reel that you were using for this rod, the foot has to be flipped around the other way, because now we're going to be sliding the reel on from the back.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, so now the handle's on the wrong side, turns the wrong way. So this is the next thing that we're developing, you guys. We're looking right now to get the production cost down to a level for everybody in the market, so it's comfortable. And we have some of them being made right now at a expedited level, so I could get on the road and start selling these. And then we have a gang of them being made in about 5.5 months. We should have them dropped on us. So this is for 2026. We're going to submit this into the new product showcase at ICAST this next year. So all the help and promotion that we could get on this piece, the better. But oh yeah, there you go, you guys. This is the next we're making.
For those curious, talk a little bit about the problem you're solving and the advantages that gives folks.
All right. So the problem we're solving is not having any loose pieces on the boat when you're putting your gear together, and not a big, long, drawn out time frame to put your gear together when you're on a long range trip. That was the original thing. My buddy and I were on a long range trip and just watching everybody putting gear together. And we started talking about it on that long range trip. And by the time the next long range trip came around, we had all of our gear on ReelQuick, and it's just blam, blam, blam. You could put 10 rods together that quick. So the other bonus part of it is you don't have any more loose pieces. That's one bonus. Another bonus part of this is all your reels fit onto your rods the same way. We have two different family sizes. So the 27 and the 23. Once you have the 23 reel seat on your rods and you have 23 foot that we replace onto your reels, those reels go interchangeably to all the rods that you have with the size on it. And it's consistent. It isn't one fits really good and it fits bad on another. It's consistent. It's sturdy. We haven't had any failures on anything made out of metal. It's a better mousetrap. Another benefit of this that we're going to start developing is the ability for you to store your reels in a tackle room on a yacht or in a tackle room in your garage, with these pieces as being the reciprocals for those. So this will modify this so I could screw it to a wall. It's not going to have a hole in it, but just be a plate so we could screw it to a wall or screw it down into a drawer. Now your reels slip onto this perfectly stationary. They're not going to fall off or roll around when you're traveling. Great for the yachties, great for people that want to store their stuff properly in their garage and do the maintenance on it in their garage. Then at the same time, we'll have a reciprocal for the rod, which is basically a reel foot that I'll screw to a ceiling somewhere with probably a standoff, some kind of a block standoff. So, it's away from the wall a little bit. And then we could take, these rods and basically line them up, just secured by the reel seat and maybe a clip on the tip at the end, just so it's not wobbling around. But nothing really is going to be touching the blank while you're underway and traveling. That's a great benefit that we need to develop. And it's a great benefit for our rod wrappers for us to develop that so they can sell whole ReelQuick rod systems to yachties and completely outfit their whole boat. So think about it. So we had one of our guys, a rod wrapper, already start doing some 3D stuff with the dovetail. And I'm not sure where it is right now, but how about we have a little tool set? It's not going to be a metal piece that we would probably attach to the yacht. It would be a little plastic clip that doesn't take any weight really, and have, attachments, keychain, screwdriver to turn the screw, or a bottle opener, multiple things like that. So now I'm going off on tangent, David.
Well, it's fun tangents. As you were holding those up, I was noticing that you have, two main sizes of the hole there, right? If you turn them lengthways, right?
Yeah.
Now, we know that rods come in lots of different circumferences and whatnot. So do you just find the one that's use the one that is big enough, and maybe you'll have to put some packing inside there? How does that work?
Yeah, so I think that we should start. This is great for Tiffany to listen to and start building her repertoire for this. So the 23 millimeter goes with your 12 to 60 pound setups. So we've adapted to appropriate reels that have the foot that fits this. So the same thing with the 27 millimeter, it goes for your 60 to 130 setups roughly. But can we put something, smaller on this? If I've designed the foot for it, yes. So that sets up some parameters right there. I don't want to see the limitations of ReelQuick because we can always adapt to another foot and make it. But at the moment, the limitation is we've only adapted to so many reels with the 23 and so many for the 27. So here's where the debacle comes in, David. What about those Alua 10-foot jig sticks that have something even more girthy than this? And we talked about this in my meeting with the manufacturer. But you want a reel that fits more like your 12 to 60 pound setup than the 60 to 130 on that Alua in some cases. Some cases, somebody might want to put an SX Avid on there or a small turn on that Alua 10-foot jig stick. So let me just share with you the limitation on those jig sticks. The post holes on the reel aren't wide enough apart for us to put it on the Alua. So they can't even use the SX at this moment on the Alua jig stick. The posts aren't, they step back on those big giant jig sticks. They're just using the clamp on the back of the reel to attach to that rod. Crappy, super bad way to do it. You crush the blank, it moves, all those wonderful things that you've heard and experienced when using that. So what I want to do is have a reel seat that's so girthy that it'll go on that Alua, maybe even adapting to it. So it has to be big enough to come up from the very back end of the butt. And then, yes, David, we shim it up with tape, whatever, however you have done it in the past. I've always used tape and just wrap tape until it's nice and snug, slip it in place, fill it up with the Pro Paste or epoxy, 2-part epoxy, whatever you choose to use, and it stays on there. People think, well, you're using such a girthy hole for this rod. How are you going to fill that in? Well, think about it. The grip is always as big as this. And so it really doesn't matter that you shimmed your reel seat up.
That's the way to do it. I mean,
that's the way to do it.
That's
so David,
all day long.
The next thing that we need is one with like a 36. Actually, I've never put a micrometer or a measuring device on the Alua, and that's next. I mean, it's the next thing in the puzzle that I need to talk to the manufacturer about. It's going to be like a 36 or some ridiculously big number. But it's going to benefit those people that want to glue a reel seat in place for that Alua.
Having owned
I go off tangent.
Having owned a tackle store for many years, Tiffany and I ran it. You build something like this, you're going to go for the rods and the reels that you get the most volume of over the counter, right? And that's what you've done. So you've got most rods. Yeah, sure. Maybe there's a few that are just too small a circumference or too large a circumference, a few, but you've covered most of them there.
Covered most of them. So David, on some of those that are crossover, because we're going 12 to 60 pound setups, 60 to 130 setups. So I would always rather put the smaller one on if I can, right? But if you have a reel, like there's some blanks that are so narrow, you could put this on a 2x4 blank. I think the Hercules are super, super narrow.
Yeah.
But I don't have an Avid 50 that I can put on this small reel seat. So you're kind of stuck back going to the bigger reel seat. So at the moment, it's kind of all in the planning of what you want to do to see if I have the right parts to make it work for you. And then at the same time, we're going to start organizing a way to take comments and figure out what people do want. So yeah, David, I'm mentioning this about the 36-inch hole with maybe the 23 dovetail on it for those Aluas. But, I'm just going by what I talk to people at the trade shows. Those are the things that people are asking me for right now is, do you have something for the Alua? It's constant. It's one out of every, 15 people. So that might be next on the chopping block. It might not be, but I want to have the ability to have all these ideas floating around so we can narrow it down to what we want to do next.
I understand that you'd like to generally put the smaller one on a rod if you can. But I know Tiffany talks about, well, that kind of depends on what rear grip and foregrip you want. And I'm sure Tiffany will talk about this too. But, that has something to do with it. You can have a situation where the grip, it looks too little because of the grip you used. Right, Tiffany?
Yeah. Correct.
Or the opposite. It can just look like the wrong size because of the grip material you use.
Yeah.
And
we always have to remember the grip. Sorry, David. The grip we have to have the grip below the dovetail.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was talking to Tiffany the other day, because if you have, some people want a big girthy grip up in the foregrip, and they can't have it with this, but we've had one rod builder that made a really girthy grip 15 inches above it. It was for a rail rod, but right in front of the reel seat, he shaved the cork down below this level and heat shrunk it. So there was a nice flat spot, just long enough to set the reel foot down and slide it in. And it worked out really well. It's a rod that we built for Legend Sport Fishing. They're using that thing on their boat. So just a side note, you could still do a super girthy reel seat and still have the reel go on the blank.
Yeah.
Go on.
Hey, Daniel,
Yes.
John Stanley asked a question. He said he couldn't hear what wants to know. I can't talk today. What was that angle thing you had?
The angle thing, Winthrop. This is a Winthrop,
Okay, yeah.
a Winthrop bending butt, made by Winthrop in Connecticut, and they normally, John, just have their ferrule nuts on here and ferrule screws that clamp down onto your reel foot. Well, we figured out that we could strip all their ferrule nuts off of there and have our dovetail onto their bending. But sorry, you guys, I did gloss over, or I didn't even mention that dovetail is the same as the 27. So everything that goes onto your glue-on 27, onto your rail rods, your roller tip rods, will go on to this reel seat for the Winthrop bending butt, same size dovetail. So all interchangeable with this piece.
You know, the size, the circumference of the rod, not only the circumference of the rod, but also the thickness of the blank material. Those are something that I've sort of tried to refine my use of over the years as I fished. You know, I started out a guy that spent too much time in the gym and had all these muscles and thought I needed a big heavy duty thick rod to work all of that with. And it's still kind of fun to use some of that, but there are so many times when I've really refined over the years what circumference of rod, of blank I want to start with, and the thickness of it. The thickness of it, because it has a lot to do with the weight. And then the circumference also has to do with how you're going to use it. And I'll make a classic example. Something that Captain Dave Hansen and I thoroughly enjoy doing is boiler rock bassing, throwing swim baits and whatnot to the boiler rocks at the islands and points of land where calicos are in there, and you're right by these big rocks and there's big waves crashing over them, and it just does things to your adrenaline gland, and you make hundreds of casts in a day. And when you're making that many casts, you start needing a different rod than you do for something else. And there, I start liking to go to a more slender rod, less circumference, and also one that doesn't have quite the thickness of the walls, because I end up having a very lightweight rod that way. And then I can build it accordingly with have Tiffany put a lightweight foregrip and rear grip on there. And then I've got a casting machine, put together like a 9-foot rod. And that thing allows me to make 150 more casts today. And if I can make 150 more casts today, I'm going to catch 180 more bass. Well, yeah. I think I can, but I'm going to catch more bass anyway, whatever the number is. And so those types of things, and thinking of people building rods, Captain Tiffany there, a big part of rod building, and everybody listening to this, getting into rod building, you got to learn and understand that much of the quality of the work you do, or the usefulness, will have to do with how you talk to your customers, how you draw information out of them about where they fish, how they fish, what they fish with, lures, baits, whatever. And then help them make decisions. I mean, my heavens, have you gone to vaguerods.net and looked at rod blanks? Well, there's about a million of them. And you want to build a rod, and you need to bring this down to, okay, I'll order this one. Well, that can be a daunting task, So really it comes down to, okay, you're buying a tool. So what do you need this tool to do? If you're buying a hammer, okay, are you dinking in little tiny nails? Are you doing some heavy duty framing, or what are you going to do? It makes you choose a different hammer. Same thing with a rod. The blank that you start with before your build has kind of pretty much everything to do with what you're going to end up with. Having said that, I've seen Tiffany work some total magic by removing some of the butt from the rod, which does one thing to the overall action and weight and length, but also removing some of the tip off also, because maybe a blank is perfect except that it's just a little too fine up there at the tippy top, and you need a little more power than that for what you're doing. So you can do a lot once you pick a blank, but it still comes down to picking a blank. And Tiffany, how long would you say you talk to people and help them come down to which blank they want? I heard you do it a million times in the tackle store, and now you're doing it, online, emails, phone calls, and stuff like that. How do you walk people through that? How long does it take?
It all depends on the person. Sometimes, it could take a few minutes just to figure out what they want to do, what they're going to be fishing for, how they're going to be fishing for that fish, the weight class, what power and action they want, all these little things that I'll start asking. And in the classes, I go in the first couple of days is all about the materials, the weight, the length, the power, the action deflection, all that is all combined. And so with the classes, it's a little bit longer, where we go through everything so they can dictate and determine which blank would best be suited for what type of fishing they're doing. You can't give someone a trout rod, a spinning rod that's going to be fly fishing. So you've got to, figure out how they're going to fish for it, what they're going to use to fish for it, and their specific tastes that they have before they can dictate what type of blank they want.
Yeah. And you know what I relate that to in my mind is how many charters did we run? 10,000 something? I don't know. We ran charters for a lot of years. And one of the things that was always amusing to us, we'd sort of cast sidelong glances at each other, is when people would come aboard with these freshwater bass rods, and then they'd say, okay, can we go chase some white sea bass, or go after thresher shark or something like that? And Tiffany and I kind of look at their gear and look at each other and go, yeah, we've got some gear you could use for that aboard the boat. So okay.
Yeah.
You've heard me say this before, but I'm going to say it again. And that is, you don't have one rod. And that's for the same reason that you never see somebody go golfing with one club, right? Because that isn't going to do everything you need to do. And so what we really like to see people do when they come aboard the boat, or when anybody goes aboard any fishing boat, is to, if you got something in mind that you want to go target, bring the appropriate gear to go target that with. And so Tiffany has, I've heard her in the shop, I've heard her on the phone and read her emails, and somebody says, okay, I need a rod for yellowtail yo-yoing. Okay. and I need another rod for yellowtail when I'm casting bait, like to kelp patties and whatnot. Different rods. And so, getting down to that finite of a level of what are you going to do with this rod, really kind of helps people come up with the best rod possible. And that kind of stuff is what Tiffany has become a master of and helps a lot of people do it.
Yeah, and what I want to put into this is I see it all the time. 1 minute they're using the rod for an anchovy, then they switch over and they put a squid on the rod, then they switch over, they put a big mackerel on the rod. You're not going to set the hook. If you use that rod as an anchovy rod, that's your anchovy rod. You need a different rod, like Dave said. Just like the yellowtail, the yo-yo rod, you're not going to use it for the surface iron, and you're not going to use it for bait. It's all different. So you got to remember that, especially when you're out on the boat and you keep switching back and forth. Just throwing that out there.
No, that is so important, ultimately important. And as I mean, three of us on here are fishing captains, right? And so, we see this stuff happen so often, and we know that, guy, with the right equipment, someone can catch more fish and have a better time and think, their day was better spent and better worthwhile. And so everyone listening, when you're building a rod for someone or for yourself, just get really, really fine-tuned into what this specific rod is going to be used for. When somebody would come into the tackle store and say, well, have you got a rod that I can use for kind of most things? We hand them a tree trunk and say, as close as you got, it's going to be right for very few things, but it'll be right when you need a tree trunk, when you're dropping, when you're dropping 400 feet and going for raging Langasar down there, hey, this one will set you just right, but if you're trying to cast a bait or a jig or something to a surface boil or a kelp patty or something, you need different rod. And as Captain Dave just pointed out, depending on what you're casting out there, you need a different rod. So get specific about the use for a rod.
And that's why when you come into Tiffany's world, gang, you guys are in Tiffany's world right now. So take advantage of it. We do this show every Thursday. There's a reason why we do this show on Thursdays, is because it's so important. This is your opportunity. All of you members of the website, there's times where you can use this rod that you're getting built for fishing a Pacific fish, but you can't use it for fishing for something else. You want to make sure you're getting the rod for the reason why you're getting it. You guys have all bought rods over the years. But I tell you, when you come with me on the boat, you can't use that rod right here. You can't use the rod we were fishing anchovies with to fly line a sardine or a mackerel. The reason why, and this blows people's minds, you're not going to be able to set the hook. And if you can't set the hook, who cares if you get a bite?
That's right. That's right. Bites don't do you much good if you can't set the hook.
You can't set the hook. And if you guys, I see you all the time throwing a big giant bait out like a sardine or a squid, and the rod is way too light. So we have an advantage. We're here right now. We got Tiffany with us. So let's let Tiffany roll along here and explain to us why we need this rod, that rod, the cork wrap, the foam wrap, the ReelQuick, reel seat, all the stuff that we need when we're putting together our rods. Because this is so interesting for me every time Tiffany talks.
Yeah, it's basically like you guys were saying, with if you have a rod for, say, thresher sharks or something, you're not going to get the sensitivity of per se like a calico bass rod that you're casting into the kelp beds, or if you're broiler rock bass fishing. The sensitivity between the two, I mean, and I'm just using this as a broad example, so that you can see the exact difference of it. But if try casting a 200-pound blank, or you've built it into a rod, try to cast that into the broiler rock bass fishing. You're better off tying something onto the end of a broomstick, because that's pretty much the action that you're going to get. It's not going to have the action that you want for when you're casting into the broiler rocks, or if you're casting into the kelp beds. Even if you're in the freshwater and you're casting into, for largemouth bass, that action, that sensitivity, and you're pretty much way overpowering the function of the rod for a little rod. So yes, Dad.
Can I interject a question?
No.
Something I've seen you do many, many times, and that is when someone contacts you and says, I want to go target white sea bass. That's a good example, because who doesn't want to go target white sea bass?
Right.
And some people come in and, okay, I want this blank, I want this guide, I want this foregrip and reel seat, and they come in and they basically just give you a list of things to go order or buy, put together. But many people, fortunately, want your input. And so how do you help them if they're willing to take the help, decide how to put together this rod?
First thing I do is find out, what reel they're going to use. Some people do use spinners for white sea bass, while other people use conventionals for white sea bass. So that's one thing I do ask. Are you going to be using a spinner, or are you going to be doing it more conventional style? That's going to be two totally different ways you're going to put it together. Most people use conventionals. That's the most. So then I'll find out what type of line they're going to use. Majority of the people use braid with the top shot of fluorocarbon. So, okay, now we got to look into the guides that are braid proof. I lean to turn more into like the Alps type guides, because for years and years, we've had the Alps on our boats, on our rods, and we use braid, and they've never failed. Whereas, some, and I also find out how often do they fish, because there's also a price difference here. If they're ones that, I go fishing once a year, then they can get by with using like the Fuji SICK guides. And it comes down to the materials of the ring. The SICK guides are the most hardest, but they're very brittle, and they can, you can get grooves or breaks in there that can fray your line. Whereas the Alps, they last longer because they're not as hard, but they are braid proof. So if they're type that's going to fish maybe once a year, they can go into the Fujis. It's going to be a little bit less expensive. But if they want something that's going to last, and they're going to fish a lot like we did, I'm going to recommend that they use these guides instead. Then from there, I get a measurement, ask them to measure from the tip of their elbow to the palm of their hand. That's going to be the length of their rear grip, because they're going to want to be standing, especially if they're standing on the side of the boat holding it, and they start getting into a fight with a sea bass. They're going to want to have the stamina, they're going to want to have the strength, and they're going to want to be able to, be able to last through that fight. So, I'll have them measure that, and then, we've decided what their rear grip's going to be. Their reel seat, ReelQuick is going to be on there pretty soon on a lot of these reels, because once you guys see the ReelQuick reel seats, you're going to fall in love with them. Then we go with the length of the foregrip, and the foregrip, everybody's different when it comes to the length of the foregrip. Some people like 6 inches. Some people like 8 inches. Some people like 10 inches. Some people like 12 inches. That becomes more of a personal preference than more of a functionality. It depends on what's comfortable, where they're going to be holding it.
And some people put those foregrips against the rail all the time too. So
Yeah,
you need
yeah.
a different material there.
And then we go into, I mean, if I'm building the rod for someone, then I'll go into, if they want the Tiffany special grip, which is the grip that I came up with many, 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 many years ago for rail rods. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into, helping somebody find, the components, the blank and everything. It's not just, 3 simple questions. It's like a full-blown conversation of what you're going to do. Fishing, Matt, yes. Wait till we start talking about little butts, and big fat butts.
Yeah.
And Jason, the guides, there's different costs and guides, but on my website, if you go and look at the cost of the guides, it's going to blow your mind away.
Why is that?
Because everything's up to 40% off. In some cases, they're 50% off.
Yeah. Probably the lowest everyday prices people will find anywhere. And that includes, Mudhole and all the rest of them. We just got better everyday prices than anybody. I'm cracking up here because Matt's going, Tiffany special grip. Whoa there.
Has nothing to do with big butts.
I think in the past on the podcast, you've actually shown that, like a little video of it. But maybe you should tell people what they are, and I may add some to that too.
The special grips I came up with 10 years ago was, I'm not a true fan of shrink tube, or they're good for some things, but when you're dealing with fish, especially if you're a deckhand or if you're running a boat and you're baiting people up and you're doing all sorts of stuff, you get slime on your hands and stuff. Your hands everything is slippery. You know what I mean? There is no grip, and you can still have some grip with some products, and some grips, but it's not solid to me. So I came up with these grips where it's a process to do. It's a woven grip that it's all hand woven with one very long cord, but it's not a cord that's like super hard and it's bad on your hands. It's all woven, so it still has kind of like that cord feel to it, but it's softer. And no matter how your hands get slimy or wet or whatever, no matter what, that grip is gonna stay. That rod's gonna stay in your hand, and it's. I love it. Takes a long time to do, but I love it.
Yeah, I've been seeing you build those for years. And Matt, that grip, one of the beauties of it to me was, I'd be there, I'd be working with anchovies or mackerel, really slimy ones, or I'd be cutting squid or filleting fish or whatever, and my hands are just a mess, and all of a sudden a rod goes off and I got to grab that thing quick, and my hands are just covered with yuck. And that Tiffany grip gives me just a solid grip, no matter how bad my hands are. And so to me, it's like the most magical grip I've ever handled. And I love the things. It's it takes a while for Tiffany to do these things, but man, is it a great grip. And the part that Tiffany might not have mentioned is, we've told you she's one of the 10 best rod wrappers in the world. She probably won't tell you that, but I will. And that's because she went to the International Rod Building Competition and won. And the Tiffany grip is something that she won with, because these judges from all around the world looked at that and handled it and said, we have never seen anything like this before. And everyone could see the benefit of it. So yeah, the Tiffany special is one heck of a grip.
It's a good one. wanted to bring something up that Daniel was saying, but before I do that, Jason asked if you want to get into wrapping rods as a beginner, what is some advice can you give to get started? The best advice I can give you is to go on to vaguerods.net, sign up for a 15-week course, not a 1 or 2 day course. Those are class, we call them. Those classes just teach you how to throw, components and grips and stuff onto a blank. You really want to get into rod wrapping, you need to take a course. Now, these 15-week course we designed and put together for colleges. We used to teach this in the community colleges, and then when COVID hit, every school all around the United States was shut down. Supposed to be 2-week ordeal. Well, it ended up being close to a year or two. We're in California, so it was a 2-year ordeal, and we moved it from the on-site classroom setting and moved it to online, and it's all live. So the classes, which is you get the same stuff that you get in the semester classes at the community college, but now you don't have to be registered through the college. Now you can go online and take these courses from anywhere around the world you want. We take you step by step. There's a lot of people that are watching this show that are in my classes or have been in my classes to understand that there's a huge difference between just throwing stuff together and actually learning the materials, learning the power and action deflection, learning what type of blank is good for what type of fishing, the action of the blank, all these different things. Plus you learn, of course, step by step on putting a rod together. You'll learn 3 or 4 different designs, basics in marbling, different guide placements. Plus we have other people in the industry that come on and teach their expertise in stuff, like not this weekend, but next weekend, we've got Doc Ski coming on and Bill Batson coming on. We have, people in the industry that come into these courses, to help people learn their expertise, because everybody's an expert in certain areas in rod building, except for Doc Ski, I think, in everything, but he's Doc Ski. Anyhow, so that's what I would recommend. You also get a free rain shadow blank in this class, and you get up to 40% off of MSRP on all products, and there's quite a few different manufacturers that we have on our website. Now I'd like to go into Daniel. You were talking about the grips and how they need to match with the reel seat. This is a topic that I actually get a lot of questions from students, and that's the shaping, how to shape your grips to really fit smoothly with the reel seat. When the grip is bigger than a reel seat, some people do like that. They like the way it looks. Some people like it where, the grip is kind of sunk in, that kind of a look, and other people like it being, outside. But if you look at the reel seat and sunken in and something that you don't like, or it needs to fit more proportional because of the function of the reel seat, there's a lot of different things that you can do. Now, when you're working with a customer, you got to do what they want, obviously. So you can't go with what your preference is, regardless. If you think they're being ridiculously funny and making absolute no sense on why they want some funky shape, it's their rod that they're paying you to do. So you got to do it their way. Even if they wanted yellow polka dotted blank, just do it. So basically, you got this grip, whether it be Hypalon, EPDM, EVA, cork grip. Like I said, how sometimes the reel seat looks too small relative to the grip. The circumference, like my dad was saying, of blanks are different. Same thing with the OD of reel seats, outside diameter. They'll be different sizes. You can have an insert being the same, but the outside is slightly bigger or smaller. And a lot of times the grips will be looks too big for that reel seat, even though it fits onto your blank. So when you want to make the grips and the reel seat look even, there's a couple of things that you can do. One thing is you want to try to make it as proportionate as possible. And like I said, everyone has their own, their own tastes and their different likes, but people like to do different things to make it that way, primarily with sanding. People do it different ways as well. And I'll share a few different ways. You could have another way that you like for those of you that have been, been rod wrapping a while, but I'm going to show you or talk about a couple of different ways that I've seen a lot of people do, and it works out really well. Some people will dry fit things first, and basically that you're just figuring out how much you need to sand the grips as you go along. And they'll put the grips on a dowel or a mandrel, greasing it up so it doesn't get stuck on the mandrel. And they'll sand down little by little. So they'll sand it down, from one end to the other, and then they'll put it back on the blank to see if it fits with the reel seat. Then if necessary, they're going to repeat that by sanding it down a little bit, then, putting it back on the dowel, obviously, or the mandrel, and sand it down a little bit, then take it off and put it back on, dry fit it again. And they'll keep repeating that until they get the shape and it being proportioned on the reel seat. Some people put it all together and start the sanding process when their grip and their reel seat is all set. What they'll do then is they'll tape the reel seat, the butt, and the winding check really, really good. And I mean really good. They're protecting the reel seat, the butt, and the winding check from getting scratches or nicks while sanding. The big oopsies where when it's all said and done, all of a sudden there's like this long scratch that goes like that. So they're protecting it with using the tape. Some will use a variety of different types of sanding tools when applying to cork grip to make it smooth. They'll start from really gritty paper and work their way down to when they get to the really smooth sandpaper. One of the things that are really popular now and very easy to use when sanding, it also has cut the shaping time down, as well as going through sandpaper after sandpaper after sandpaper, because it's a really different type of material. And that's what we call the screen style sander. And I have a piece right here that I will show you. This is great for Hypalon, EVA, EPDM, cork grips. And this is what is a screen style sander. I can't talk today. We have the screen in 33 inches long and about 1.5 inches wide, as well as sandpaper and whatnot on our website at vaguerods.net, where everything, like we keep saying, is up to 40% off. Right now, that is about 33 feet long, and it's only $9.99. I've seen them at places that have them for like $12.45. Some places I've seen them for $15.99, and I've seen them on up to $34.99. And you basically cut, whatever length that you want to use, and you apply it onto your grip. And there's a couple of different ways that people do things. And if you looked at that, it's basically holes, like tiny square holes. So the shavings are going to fall through the hole, and it ends up in your tray. If those holes fill up with your sand stuff, you simply just tap it, like I'm tapping here, and it will fall right into your tray. But I put a Tupperware type container under it when I'm sanding and collect the remnants of the cork dust. Some call it sawdust. and then I'll put the top on it so it doesn't go anywhere. Because the worst thing to have your child bump into you and that all that sawdust goes everywhere. So make sure you put the lid on it and you be outside or in a well-ventilated area. Most people I know with will go to, after they've done that type of sanding, they'll go into, a smoother type of sandpaper until they make it down to it's the smoothest sandpaper where you're just, basically sanding it smooth all out. Now, when you're sanding, some people turn the grip slowly and even maintain a consistent shape. So picture you have a fake grip, and you're basically just, having it slowly on. Some people will use the dryer, and they're just pulling it back and forth as it's rotating. Some people will actually put their foot on the pedal and use it in a power wrapper form and go, like this, right across it at a faster pace. That's one way that people do it. It boils down to preference and what's easier for you to shape it. It's the end result that counts, but you don't want to have to apply too much pressure in one spot, as this can create uneven spots and flat areas. But in a case like the ReelQuick reel seat, the one rod builder did, beautiful idea to make it, kind of flat just in that area, but shaped on the rest of it. So comparing the reel seat as you go to avoid removing too much material and then making the reel seat higher than the grips, you want it to bring it down so it's proportion, which creates yet another look that some people like and some people don't. Again, it's personal preference. No matter how you sand it, it's going to make a mess, as I explained. That's why I put the Tupperware container there. Now, this sawdust or shavings, why I hold on to it is because I can use this to fix things later. When cork grips get those little rips or gashes and you can use this to fix those damages. I get questions on what to use very, very quite frequently. And there's so many different products you can use, not just for sanding, but so many different products you can use to make filler to repair these damages that will come into play with cork. Different things that I've used for years to make a filler paste. Flex Coat was used for many, many, many years. Then Pro Coat. Now we got Gen 4, Gen 5, and many other types of epoxies you can use to create the fillers with that, the sawdust that you had come down. Some people use exterior grade, Elmer's or Type Bond, and many others. I grew up on using Flex Coat. Now I'm going into the Gen family because it's the new thing on the block. It's a simple procedure to make your own cork filler paste by simply mixing cork dust with your epoxy. This new style of paste is then packed into the imperfection missing pieces of your cork, gouges, or whatever. And you can use popsicle sticks, toothpicks to tuck point in the areas, then simply let it dry. When it's dry, sand lightly with the super fine paper or screen sander. Some people like to leave it like that. Some people like to leave the cork looking natural, while others like to seal it by some use like a U40 cork seal. That's a pretty popular choice. We sell a lot of those off the website, and there are other brands out there too. And we do have the cork seal available on the website right now on sale as well. Also, another thing with cork grips, when it gets really dingy from dirty hands, you can lightly sand them and it will come out looking new. Either leave it as it is or put a cork seal on it after. That's your choice. Again, what you do after sanding is totally up to you. Before you seal it, you need to clean up. Some people use tape and dab the tape all over the sanded pieces over and over, cleaning it. Some people use a vacuum and then tape. Some people shake it then use it. Some people dust it off with a duster then tape it. Some people use a vacuum cleaner and then tape it. There's just so many different ways that people do it, to clean up after it and People use tape differently too. Some do the dabbing way. Some cover stick and lift, stick and lift, stick and lift. Others just tape around it and then untape it. Tape works wonderfully. Some people use a very thin coat of their epoxy, and I mean a very, very thin coat over it. Some people use, there's just so many different things you can use to waterproof it. You can seal it. There's just so many different things you can do. You've got to just basically come up with something that you like that works for you. Everybody's different. Everybody uses different things. Nothing wrong with that. It all comes down to your personal preference choice. As long as the end result is good in your eyes, then you're good to go.
Our friend at DB Customs there keeps adding to the chat some real good suggestions and whatnot. Good stuff. Knows their stuff.
That's Dave. He's pretty much one of my mentors too. His work is flawless.
We like flawless work.
Yeah.
That lets you go flawless fishing.
Yeah.
I've never caught a flawless, but I don't know if they're easy to fillet or not, but it sounds like fun.
And he did make a comment. Now that I'm able to see the comments, and a dust mask. Yes, do not do this in a closed door. Use a mask because this stuff is really not healthy for you. Go outside, do it in a well-ventilated area. Put a mask on or something. Don't inhale that stuff.
Yeah, your lungs are not what you want to use as a filter.
No, you won't get very good cardio that way.
All right. Well, let's let Daniel finish this up because we got to go. I got to go to the airport. Daniel, What do you got?
You're on mute, Daniel. You're on mute.
I can hear him.
Oh, I can't.
I can't hear him.
No, I don't know. Daniel.
Nobody hearing me.
Oh, I hear you. Yay.
I had it muted. You guys, please, thank you for coming by. Please share the show. Let other people, let your friends see the show, and please give us a like and a love and a happiness there. You guys, ReelQuick Fishing, we do have some pretty significant discounts on our finished rods that we have right now. You just need to call me and we could talk about it. You want a list of the rods we have available. We've got about a 25% discount on all the built rods right now. And we are working on the final quotation for the reel seats that I have in stock, because the prices that I paid was more like prototyping prices. And I do know that we're going to be able to make these again. And so now I'm waiting for the pricing, because we're going to drop these into the realistic pricing so you guys can put these on your rods. We realize where the pricing is now is for the people that just need to have it. So feel free. You guys want to build some rods? We have these here now. We're looking for some price changes in the very near future. So stand by for that. And Dave, thank you for letting us do the show with you, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. Dave, have a good time in the Caribbean. We'll see you next week when you get back. Tiffany, hope your recovery is going well. Daniel, congratulations on your new venture. And I will see you guys all tomorrow. I have a really good kid joining me from Florida tomorrow. He's a guide down in Florida. I met him at the ICAST show, so he's going to take a little time and come on the show and spend an hour talking with me about Florida fishing. So that should be fun, and we'll be back at it again Monday morning. But I'll see you all tomorrow, and if you want to check out this bunch of rhetoric and bunch of crap going on over here at the Fish and Game meeting, we'll throw the QR code up on the screen one more time so you guys can all get in on that. And thank you all. Thank you, David. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Daniel. And we'll see you later.
Thanks for everyone listening, too.
There's the QR code. Go get them, boys.